There is a particular kind of criminal in this world who has chosen, quite deliberately, to make a living by targeting people exactly like you. Not because you are foolish, not because you are careless, but because you were raised to be polite, to trust a friendly voice on the telephone, and to believe that officials generally tell the truth. Every single year, hundreds of millions of pounds are stolen from British pensioners. Not through violence, but through a well-rehearsed script, delivered calmly and convincingly by someone who has done this 1,000 times before and knows exactly which words make a frightened person reach for their bank card. Today, I want to walk you through 7 of the most common scams, currently targeting people over 65 here in the UK, so that you can spot them the instant they appear, before they ever get near your pension. Number 4 is the one catching out even sharp, sensible people right now, because it doesn't sound like a scam at all. So settle in, and let's arm ourselves together, gently and clearly. Before we begin, I want to say something important, because shame is the scammer's greatest weapon, even after the crime is done. If you have ever fallen for something like this, in whole or in part, please hear me say plainly, it is not your fault, and it does not mean you are foolish. These operations are run by organized, well-funded criminals who train constantly, who test their scripts on thousands of victims, and who have got extraordinarily good at exactly one thing: sounding trustworthy. Falling for a professional con artist says nothing about your intelligence. It says something about their skill, and nothing more. Knowing that, let's look at what they actually do. Number 1. The bank fraud phone call. This is still, by far, the most common approach, and it works because it borrows the one thing you already trust: your own bank. The phone rings, and the caller ID even shows your bank's real number, thanks to a trick called number spoofing. A calm, professional voice explains that fraud has been detected on your account, and that to protect your money, you must move it immediately into a new, safe account they'll help you set up. I think of a gentleman named Peter, a retired engineer, sharp as a tack, who received exactly this call and very nearly transferred £18,000 before something small gave him pause. The caller grew slightly irritated when Peter said he wanted to hang up and ring the bank back himself. That irritation was the tell. Genuine bank staff never mind you verifying who they are. Remember this above almost everything else in this video. Your real bank will never ask you to move money to keep it safe. Never. If you hear those words, hang up and ring your bank using the number on the back of your card, not any number the caller gives you. It's worth understanding, too, why this particular lie works so well. The instruction to move money to safety cleverly reframes the theft as protection. You don't feel like you're being robbed. You feel like you're being helped by someone efficient and reassuring, which is precisely why victims of this scam so often describe the caller afterwards as lovely or so professional. That politeness is a tool, not a sign of honesty. And there's a second layer worth knowing. These criminals often already possess some real details about you. Perhaps your name, your bank, even the last 4 digits of your card, harvested from earlier data leaks or previous scam attempts. Hearing correct details can feel like proof they're genuine, when in truth, it's simply proof they did their homework. Genuine knowledge of your name and bank is not the same as genuine authority over your money. Peter's story didn't end with that one narrow escape either. He told me afterwards that the most unsettling part wasn't the call itself, but realizing how close he had come. and how ordinary the whole exchange had felt right up until that final moment of friction. He now keeps a simple note by his telephone. Any call about moving money, hang up, ring the bank myself. He said, having the rule written down, rather than trusted to, memory in the heat of the moment made all the difference the next time a similar call came through, some 8 months later. He didn't need to outthink a trained criminal in real time. He simply needed to follow his own rule. Number 2, the romance scam. This one is quietly devastating because it targets not your fear, but your loneliness, particularly for widows and widowers. It begins innocently on a social media site or a dating app for the over 60s, with a charming, attentive stranger, often claiming to be an engineer working abroad or in the military. The relationship builds slowly, over weeks or months, with genuine warmth and daily messages, real affection before the money requests begin, always for a plausible emergency, a medical bill, a stuck shipment, a flight home to finally meet in person. I knew a lady named Sheila, widowed 3 years, who sent over £11,000 over 6 months to a man she had never once met in person, video calls always mysteriously failing due to poor connection. The heartbreak of these scams isn't only the money. It's the second grief of losing a relationship that never truly existed. A simple, reliable rule. If you have never met someone in person and they ask you for money for any reason whatsoever, that relationship is not what it appears to be. No exceptions. What makes this scam so effective and so painful is that the affection itself is often not entirely faked in your own experience of it, even though the person behind it is. You are genuinely being listened to, genuinely made to feel special, often for the first time in years since losing a spouse, and that warmth feels wonderful, precisely because it's exactly what's missing. The criminal behind the profile may be running a dozen similar conversations simultaneously from a script, but your loneliness and your longing for connection are entirely real, which is why the eventual unraveling is so much harder than simply losing money. If you suspect you may be in a relationship like this, a useful test is a simple one. Ask to have a live, unscripted video call at a time of your own choosing, with no excuses accepted. Genuine people can do this easily. Scammers, almost without exception, cannot. Number 3, the fake grandchild in trouble. This scam preys on the single most powerful instinct a grandparent has, protecting their family, and it moves so fast there's barely time to think. The phone rings, and a young, distressed voice says, "Grandma, it's me," and simply waits. Because you're already worried, you supply the name yourself. Tommy, is that you? And now the scammer has a name to use for the rest of the call. Tommy explains he's been in a car accident or arrested and desperately needs money right now for bail or repairs, and begs you not to tell his parents because he's so embarrassed. I remember a lady named Doris who very nearly sent £4,000 to help her grandson out of a supposed jail cell in Spain. Stopped only when her actual daughter rang 5 minutes later about something entirely unrelated. The panic in these calls is manufactured deliberately because panicked people don't verify facts. If you ever get a call like this, the answer is always the same: hang up and telephone that grandchild directly on the number you already have for them. The real emergency, if there is one, will still be there in 5 minutes. The fake one will vanish the moment you check. It's worth knowing that these calls have grown more sophisticated in recent years too, with some scammers now using recordings pulled from social media or even artificial voice technology to produce something that sounds unnervingly close to the real young voice you know. This is precisely why the rule can never be, does the voice sound right? Because voices, especially over a poor phone line, especially when you're already anxious, are far easier to imitate than most people assume. The rule has to be behavioral, not auditory. Always hang up and dial the number you already have, regardless of how convincing the voice sounds and regardless of how much the caller begs you not to. A genuine grandchild in genuine trouble will understand entirely why you checked once the dust has settled. A scammer never gives you the chance to find that out, because the whole scheme depends on you never making that call. Number 4, and this is the one. Catching out even sharp, sensible people right now, because it doesn't sound like a scam at all. The pension review or consolidation call. It usually comes disguised as helpful financial advice. A friendly caller claims to be reviewing your pension arrangements for free and mentions you may be entitled to release cash from your pension early or move it somewhere with better returns. Cold calling about pensions has actually been illegal in the UK for some years now, which is itself the biggest clue. But the calls persist because they still work. What follows is either a transfer into an entirely fake, non-existent pension scheme or into legitimate-sounding but wildly unsuitable, high-risk investments loaded with hidden fees, from which your money often cannot be recovered at all. I think of a retired postal worker named Kenneth, who was persuaded to transfer his entire workplace pension, built over 31 years, into an exciting new investment opportunity that turned out to be entirely worthless, the company vanishing within 18 months. Here is your rule, simple and absolute. Any unsolicited call, text, or email about your pension is illegal and should be treated as a scam by default, however official it sounds, however friendly the voice. Legitimate pension advice comes from firms you have sought out yourself that are registered with the Financial Conduct Authority, never the other way around. It's also worth knowing that the FCA maintains a public register you or a family member can check freely, and it takes only a minute or two to look up whether a firm and the individual advisor are genuinely authorized. Kenneth's case, sadly, is far from unusual. Pension transfer scams tend to target exactly the people with the largest sums to lose, meaning decades of careful contributions and the emotional toll of losing a lifetime's saving in a single afternoon is often described by victims as far heavier than the financial loss itself, precisely because there is so little time left to rebuild it. If anyone ever contacts you first about your pension, treat the contact itself, regardless of content, as the red flag and simply put the phone down. Number 5. The courier fraud, sometimes called the police scam. This one is particularly cruel because it borrows the authority of the very people you'd normally trust for protection. Someone telephones claiming to be a police officer or bank fraud investigator, explaining that your bank card details have been cloned and that a criminal, sometimes even a bank employee, will shortly attempt to use your card. To help catch them, they ask you to keep the call going, sometimes on a second phone, while a courier is sent to your home to collect your card, your PIN, or cash for safekeeping or evidence. I knew a gentleman named Arthur who handed his card and PIN to a smartly dressed young man at his own front door, entirely convinced by the elaborate story built up over a 40-minute phone call. Real police officers will never ask you to hand over your bank card, your PIN, or cash to a courier under any circumstances whatsoever. If this happens to you, hang up and dial 101 or $999 if someone is already at your door. Using a different phone if possible, since scammers sometimes keep the original line open without you realizing, meaning you can dial 999 and unknowingly still be speaking to the very same criminal pretending to be the emergency operator. This is why using a second phone, a neighbor's, a mobile, anything other than the handset the original call came through on, matters so much. Arthur's family later discovered that this particular gang had targeted several homes on neighboring streets within the same fortnight, each time using a near-identical script and an equally well-dressed young courier, which tells you something important. This isn't opportunistic crime. It's organized, rehearsed, and run with the calm efficiency of a small business. Treating it with equal calm and process rather than embarrassment is entirely the right response. Number 6. The advance fee or prize scam. This one plays on hope rather than fear, which makes it feel entirely pleasant, right up until the moment it isn't. A letter, email, or phone call informs you that you've won a substantial lottery prize, a cash inheritance from a distant relation, or a competition you don't remember entering. All you need to do is pay a small administrative fee, a tax, or a customs charge to release your winnings. I recall a widow named Jean who paid 4 separate release fees, each time believing the promised prize was one payment away, eventually sending over £2,000 for a prize that, of course, never existed at all. Here is the rule that never fails. You cannot win a competition you never entered, and any genuine prize never, ever requires you to pay money first to receive it. If you're asked to pay to collect a prize, there is no prize, only a con. What made Jean's case particularly cruel was the way each payment was framed as the very last one. Just this final customs fee and it's yours, which is a deliberate tactic to trap victims in what's sometimes called the sunk cost trap. Having already paid 3 fees, it feels harder to walk away without paying a 4th, because doing so would mean accepting the earlier payments were wasted. Scammers count on this reluctance, and it's precisely why the second or third request so rarely triggers the same suspicion the first one perhaps should have. The kindest thing John's daughter eventually did wasn't to scold her, but simply to say, gently, "Mum, whatever you've already paid, it's gone either way. The only question now is whether you send any more." Framing it that way, as a decision entirely about the future rather than the past, is often the thing that finally breaks the spell. Number 7. The impersonation of a trusted organization, particularly HMRC or your energy provider. This one relies purely on manufactured urgency and official-sounding threats. A text or automated call claims you owe unpaid tax and face immediate arrest unless you pay right away, often by unusual methods like gift cards or cryptocurrency, which no genuine authority ever accepts. Similarly, energy scams claim you're owed a rebate, but need to confirm your bank details to receive it, or that your supply will be cut off within hours unless you pay an outstanding bill immediately. I think of a gentleman named Frank who paid £300 in Google Play gift cards to settle a supposed tax debt, genuinely terrified of the threatened arrest. No genuine government department will ever threaten immediate arrest over the phone, and none will ever ask for payment via gift cards or cryptocurrency. That request alone, on its own, tells you everything you need to know. Frank later reflected that what convinced him most wasn't any single detail, but the sheer number of small, official-sounding touches stacked one on top of another. A reference number, a case officer's name, the correct sound of a call center in the background. Scammers understand that people rarely question a story piece by piece. They judge the whole impression at once, and enough small convincing details create an overall feeling of legitimacy, even when any one of them, examined alone, wouldn't hold up. Knowing this is itself a kind of protection. The next time an official-sounding call demands urgent payment, remember that the feeling of legitimacy can be manufactured every bit as carefully as the words themselves, and treat that feeling with the same suspicion as the request. Now, having walked through all 7, let me give you a handful of simple habits that protect you against every single one of them, without you needing to memorize every detail I've just shared. First, create a family password, a word only you and your closest family know, to be used whenever anyone claims to be a relative in distress, or a genuine caller you can't immediately verify. Second, remember that urgency itself is the warning sign, not the story attached to it. Scammers create time pressure deliberately because a calm mind asks questions and a panicked one doesn't. Whenever you feel rushed, that feeling itself should make you stop entirely. Third, always hang up and call back using a number you find yourself from a bill, a card, or an official website, never a number the caller provides you, however official it sounds. Fourth, talk about these calls openly with your family and friends, rather than feeling embarrassed, even to mention them. Sharing what happened to you might be the very thing that saves your neighbor or your sister next month. And fifth, if you're ever even slightly unsure, simply say, "I'll call you back," and put the phone down. No genuine caller from any real organization will ever object to you taking a moment to be certain. Let me leave you with a story that captures, better than any list, the real defense against all of this. A retired school teacher named Margaret received a call from her bank about suspicious activity, delivered with total confidence and remarkable detail about her actual account. Everything about it sounded correct. But Margaret had one habit built over years that saved her. Whenever money was mentioned on an unexpected call, she simply said, calmly and without apology, "That's lovely. I'll ring the bank myself now, thank you," and put the phone down every single time, regardless of how convincing the caller sounded. It cost her nothing but 30 seconds and a moment of mild awkwardness. That one habit, repeated automatically, without exception, protected her savings for over a decade through calls both genuine and false alike, because she never had to correctly judge which was which in the moment. She simply verified everything, every time, and let that habit do the judging for her. So there they are, 7 scams worth knowing by heart. The fake bank fraud call, the romance scam that targets loneliness, the fake grandchild in trouble, the illegal pension review call, the Courier fraud borrowing police authority, the advance fee prize that never existed, and the impersonation of HMRC or your energy company. None of these succeed through your foolishness. They succeed through skilled manipulation of ordinary human trust, and the antidote isn't suspicion of everyone around you. It's a handful of simple, unbreakable habits. Verify independently. Never act under pressure, and never be embarrassed to hang up. If this spoke to you today, please subscribe, because every week I share these honest, practical lessons for our later years, and I would love to have you along for the next one. And I would genuinely love to know, in the comments, whether you or someone you love has ever encountered one of these 7, because sharing your story might be exactly what protects somebody else watching today. I read every single comment. Take good care of yourself. Trust your instincts. And I'll see you in the next one.